Hello GATE parents, I wanted to talk to you about the Noetic Learning Math Competition that we've been doing with the students this past week in GATE class. You may have heard your kids come home and say, we took a math test this week, or we did a math competition this week. And I just wanted to explain where it came from and why it's been used in the GATE classroom. First of all, I discovered the Noetic Learning Math Competition when I was at my previous school, Sebring Local Schools. It's a similar sized school, and it's a great opportunity for students in a small school to compete internationally, but also to be exposed to problems that are specifically written for gifted learners at their grade level, meaning that they're looking at a third grader and creating problems they think a third grade gifted learner should be able to solve. So there are 20 problems in the competition, and they have 45 minutes to complete those 20 problems. They are not required to show their work, which most of the students love, but they can show their work if they want to. They're allowed to write on the paper, draw, illustrate, use letters to represent numbers, whatever strategy works best for them. And you may have heard the kids at the beginning of the year talking about how we were trying out different strategies like guess and check and draw a picture, use a bar to represent parts of numbers or whole groups of numbers, especially with word problems. Sometimes we use letters to represent unknown numbers, and sometimes we make a table or a chart. We work backwards. So we tried a bunch of different problem-solving strategies in chunks at the beginning of the year. Noetic offers a competition in the fall and then one in the spring. Since I only see the kids once a week, I chose to have us take the spring competition. And really for me, it wasn't so much, since this is the first time we've ever done it, it wasn't so much about if we win or if we get the best scores ever, as it was about how do we handle coming across hard problems. And what do we do with that moment of feeling like, I don't even know how to attack this problem, or I've never seen this before, or this kind of problem with this many steps before. And for this class and our purposes as a gifted classroom, my goal is for them to learn strategies to handle anxiety, whether it be test anxiety or perfectionism or negative self-thoughts about who they are and where their identity lies. Those are all things that matter to me for our gifted kids to learn the truth of who they are in Christ, as well as if grades or scores or winning determine their worth. Those are things that really matter to me. It's part of why I'm here at Lake Center instead of at a different school, because I really want people, gifted kids especially, to know the truth about who they are and where their value lies. So when it comes to these 20 problems, I taught them a test-taking strategy where they identify questions that are their now problems and questions that are their later problems. They put stars next to the problems they feel confident about, and they put question marks next to the problems that I'm not really sure about. So they did that, and then I told them, go through and do the ones that are your now problems first. Get those points and get that correct because you know how to do those. You're confident in those problems. That way you have time left over to do the later problems, and maybe if you need more time, you won't feel rushed on those to get onto the ones that you actually know. It was nice because it wasn't a bubbling situation. They didn't have to worry about mixing up what they bubbled. And then also they had the opportunity to show their work or not show the work. They could use the dry erase desks, or they could use scratch paper to work out the problems, or they could write directly on it. It's really common with Noetic learning for them only to get like 8 to 12 problems correct. That's normal. It's not anything like a normal test where you would expect a gifted learner to get like an 80% or higher. So when you get the scores and when you get your child's solutions back, I want you to keep in mind that this is not a test. It was timed and it was a competition in the sense that it's created with the idea that you could win a medal if you got the highest score in your grade level, or if you got the highest score in your grade level out of the whole world, then you could get one of the people who report to their website. So there are some things like that that are competitive about it, but ultimately for our purposes, it was about handling hard things. We talked about perseverance, we talked about strategies for when we get frustrated, Every kid's anxieties manifest in different ways. Some children bottle it all up inside and they come home and they kind of get upset when they get home. Some kids shut down and refuse to do the work. Some kids might have some tears slip out as they're working their way through the frustration. Some children might tear corners of the paper or even try to rip up the paper. And some kids are so confident that they're right that they just fly right through them and then only get like half of them right. Every kid is different. There's not a right or a wrong way, except that I want to see them all persevere when it's hard, go back and change things if I tell them that they're incorrect without shutting down or thinking that they've done something wrong or that it changes who they are. And then also I want them to be able to look at a problem and think their way around it. These problems were not difficult as far as calculations were concerned. There weren't a lot of decimal problems or fraction problems that were very complex. They were more about, do you understand what the question is asking? Can you gather the information that is presented? And then can you attack the problem in a strategic way successfully? Those were really the point of it. A lot of people in the world would call what we were doing during the Noetic Learning Math Competition social and emotional learning skills. We're learning strategies for how to handle frustration, how to handle anxiety, and really if we hit a level of challenge that we've never hit before, that we can still think rightly about how to approach that. It's not uncommon for gifted kids to feel when they finally hit a challenge like they are imposters. They call it imposter syndrome. And it means that they think, oh, gifted kids don't really struggle with hard things. And if I struggle, that means I must not really be gifted. Maybe they got it wrong. And that's just not true. We want to make sure that they know that you should be encountering hard things. And when you do encounter hard things, these are some ways to handle that moment. If I were to give a writing competition, I would have a totally different set of kids who would find success probably, because not all kids are good at both math and writing. Some kids are better in one area than another. And my kids who knew that language arts was their strength expressed that and talked about it. They said, if we were doing a writing competition, this would not be nearly as frustrating as this one is. And so we talked about that in class too. When you get your kids' scores, I'm going to send home a manila envelope with the actual paper that they completed, as well as a copy of the solutions worked out from the original company, so that you can see how they say you should solve the problem the right way. Okay? And you are welcome to look at those yourself as parents if it's important to you. I want to ask you to prayerfully consider sharing the results with your kid. For example, if I have a student who I know hates math and was resistant to the whole concept to begin with, and they're also a perfectionist, it might not be helpful to show them that they got a 15 out of 100 because you get 5 points for every problem that you got right. That might just make them think even more negatively about what they're able to do in math. A success for that same child might be that they didn't cry, or they didn't shut down, or they didn't give up. And so I want to really focus on what it was that they did well. If they overcame the obstacle of giving up, that's really what I want us to focus on, because on any given day, it could be the other outcome. And we worked really hard to get to the place where we worked through something really hard for them. So I would just encourage you to prayerfully approach talking to them about it. If there's somebody who's usually really good at math and they really thought they got them all right, but they didn't, let's not focus on the fact that they didn't get them all right. Let's focus on the ones that they got right, and then show them how to do the ones that they missed and talk about why. I really want to avoid language like, this is stupid, I don't care about this competition, it doesn't matter if I win, or I don't care what score I get. I want to avoid that kind of negative self-talk, because it's not that it matters that much how they did. It's really about how they approach it and their attitude. Is it an attitude that glorifies God? Is it an attitude that brings honor to His name? God is the God of math, just like He's the God of language arts and the God of everything. So we talk about that in class, like, listen, if you get to a place where you're frustrated, God knows, and He cares about that moment in your life. So ask Him for help. If His help doesn't look like a right answer, that's okay. His help might be giving you comfort and peace in that moment, and that's enough. So please think about how you talk to them about it. It's really important that they know that their value does not come from a score, whether it's good and they did awesome and they got the best score out of everybody, or whether their value comes from it because they didn't do well. I don't want any of our kids to believe that their value comes from a score or a grade. It's really important for gifted kids. It drives perfectionism and underachievement at the same time. Kids who think that they should always get A's and then they suddenly don't know what to do with that. So I need them to know that this isn't a determinant of their worth. So please make sure that they know that, whether it be positive or negative. No one got all the answers right. Not a single person did, and that is really hard for them. They're used to getting them all right or getting close to all of them right. So to have it be where not a single person in our whole grade level got all 20 questions right. And it's not because they ran out of time. They tried all of them. What does that mean? Does that mean we're not really gifted? Of course not. These questions are specifically meant to challenge them and to push them to a higher level of ceiling so that they are being challenged. If they always get 80 or 90% right, the problems probably aren't hard enough. This is not a normal classroom setting where we expect mastery of this kind of problem. So I just wanted to explain to you what it really is. For me, it was really interesting and helpful to coach them through it. Of course, my kids who I have right now in 3rd grade will have more time to develop this particular strategy, whereas my 6th graders have only experienced it this year. So then next year it'll be a little bit different when they go to junior high. But I think the problem-solving strategies are really helpful no matter what grade level you're in, and even more than that, how to approach something that is hard for you. So if you have any questions or concerns or want to talk in more detail about your own child, by all means email me, or we can set up a phone conference or an in-person conference to talk about it. I just wanted to let you know what it was so that nobody was surprised. It doesn't determine if they're in GATE anymore. It's not meant to be something that makes them feel amazing about themselves or badly about themselves. It was really helpful to see, though, how they handle something new and also something that feels intense even though it doesn't count for a grade or for a placement in some sort of a program. So I hope it was as helpful to you. If you want more information, let me know. There is a summer program offered by the company called Challenge Math Online. It's not the most slick-looking program. It's very basic in what it looks like online, but the problems are specifically geared to gifted learners, and that might be something that they find appealing. So if you're interested, let me know. Have a wonderful evening.